Good evening and welcome to AJP. Northeast Asia ran one trade today, sell memory, buy the machines that test it, and three indexes reported three completely different numbers for it. The KOSPI closed at around 6,789, down nearly 2%. The Shanghai Composite finished around 3,963, up a fraction. The Nikkei 225 ended around 66,406, up nearly 0.5%. Those three numbers describe the same session. Nvidia's results, released overnight, beat expectations and guided to roughly 70% revenue growth for the fiscal year ending January 2028. But the company also said it is locking in high bandwidth memory and DRAM supply for its next platform, and that the supply gap may persist into 2028. Markets read that as a cost problem for whoever buys memory and a volume problem for whoever tests it. Memory makers were sold across the region. Test and assembly equipment was bought. What separated the three indexes was not exposure to that trade, it was weighting. Korea's index is dominated by two memory names. Japan's most heavily weighted semiconductor stock makes testing equipment, not memory. China owns almost none of either. Each index simply reported its own construction. The KOSPI lost around 123 points to close at about 6,789. But the KOSPI 200, the large cap index, fell more than 2%, and advancing shares outnumbered decliners by roughly 642 to 238. Most of the Korean market rose today. The index still fell nearly 2%, because Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix together carry close to half its value. Foreign investors sold a net 1.76 trillion won of KOSPI stock, about $1.3 billion. Institutions sold a further 284 billion won. Retail investors absorbed 425 billion won of it. That foreign number is a day. Samsung Electronics closed at around 257,000 won, or about $187, down more than 3%. SK Hynix fell more than 4% to around 1,653,000 won, roughly $1,200, despite Nvidia naming memory supply as its binding constraint through 2028. The steepest large cap fall was Samsung Biologics, down nearly 7% to around 1,486,000 won, about $1,080, after the board approved a rights offering of roughly 3 trillion won to fund its polypeptide group acquisition and its Songdo expansion. Against that, the rest of the market ran. Samsung Electromechanics rose more than 2% to around 1,421,000 won, about $1,035. Refiners jumped, with S-Oil up more than 9% on higher crude. Cosmetics and internet retail sectors gained more than 6%. The won strengthened to around 1,373 to the dollar. The Shanghai Composite closed at around 3,963, up about 0.6%, its fourth straight advance, and a very narrow one. More than 4,000 stocks fell across the two mainland exchanges, while the index rose. The gains concentrated in artificial intelligence hardware. Industrial Fulian, the Shanghai-listed server assembler, added around 1% to close near 65 yuan. SMIC, listed on the STAR market, rose more than 10% to a record high. The optical interconnect trade that led Wednesday reversed. Hengtong Optic Electric, which closed at its daily limit on Wednesday, gave back around 3% to about 69 yuan. And CICC finished essentially flat near 35 yuan. Despite the Shanghai exchange clearing its absorption of Dongxing Securities and Cinda Securities the previous evening, a regulatory approval the market has already priced. The Nikkei 225 rose around 274 points to close near 66,406, with the yen at about 159 to the dollar. That gain conceals the same memory sell-off Korea suffered. Kioxia, Japan's memory maker, fell nearly 9% to around 47,900 yen, a steeper drop than anything in Seoul. Fujikura, the data center cable supplier, lost nearly 3% to around 5,340 yen. The index rose anyway because Advantest gained nearly 2% to around 35,270 yen. Advantest makes chip test equipment, and it carries more weight in the Nikkei than Kioxia and Fujikura combined. Japan ran Korea's trade and got the opposite headline. Today, the region agreed on the trade and disagreed only on the arithmetic. Memory was sold in Seoul and sold harder in Tokyo. Equipment was bought in both. The unresolved question is what the selling means. Whether investors are pricing memory supply constraints as a genuine margin risk into 2028, or simply clearing semiconductor positions ahead of Federal Reserve Chair Warsh's Jackson Hole address tonight. Monday's open, after that speech, we'll say which. We will be back at the next Northeast Asia market close with Korea, China, and Japan. Subscribe to stay with us. Thank you for watching AJP.